The question says the doctor orders Manadol 300 mgs and 50 mLs of D5W to infuse IV piggyback in 15 minutes. The drop factor is 10 GTTs per ml. How many mLs per hour will you set the IV infusion pump? Okay, so first we need to know what the question is asking for. So the question is asking for mLs per hour. All right, so you know me, I like to start with the physician's order. Now, it is very important with these questions that you pay attention to what your answer needs to end in. So what we're going to pull from our physician's order is the volume and the time. So for these IV infusion questions, you really just need the volume and the time. All right, so we're going to start with the physician order. So the physician order is for 50 mLs of the medication to be infused over 15 minutes. All right, so now we know that our answer needs to be in mLs per hour, but we're currently in mLs per minute. So this is simple. All we now have to do is get to hours. So minutes is on the bottom, so minutes need to be on the top. So we know that 60 minutes is equal to 1 hour. So minutes is going to cancel out, and we're going to be left with mLs per hour. So now all we have to do is multiply straight across the top and bottom. So straight across the top will be 50 times 60, and that will give us 3,000. And then we have 15 times 1, which is 15. So we'll do 3,000 divided by 15, and that will give us 200 mLs per hour. The question says the doctor orders to infuse 250 mLs of platelets IV over 2 hours and 30 minutes. What you have available is 10 GTs per ml. So the question says, what is the flow rate, which is what is the mLs per hour that you will set your infusion pump. So first we want to know what our answer needs to end in, and it is mLs per hour. All right, so in this question, we're going to need the volume, and we're going to need the time. All right, so what I suggest doing for this problem is getting all your minutes in one. So we have, it says 2 hours and 30 minutes. So what I would do is I would go to the side and say, I would then convert this. So we have our 30 minutes, right? And then we have 2 hours. So we know that 1 hour is 60 minutes, and then another hour is another 60 minutes. So that will give us a total of 120 hours. And then we're going to add it to the 30, and that will give us 150 minutes. Now, this is me. This is what I would like to do. All right, so now we can go and start with the physician's order. So our volume is going to be 250 mLs over 150 minutes. All right, so our answer needs to be in mLs per hour. So we need to convert to our minutes to hours. So we know that 60 minutes is equal to 1 hour. So your minutes is going to cancel out, and you're going to be left with hours. So we're going to multiply 250 times 60. So we're just multiplying straight across the top, and we're going to get 15,000. And then we're going to multiply straight across the bottom, and we're going to get 150. So then we're going to divide 15,000 divided by 150, and we're going to get 100 mLs per hour. The question says the doctor orders 1.14 liters of D5 with Ringer's lactated to be infused over 18 hours. The drop factor is 20 GTTs per ml. What is the flow rate which you will set your IV infusion pump to? All right. So this is looking for mLs per hour. So one thing that you are seeing with these questions is that they have the GTT per ml in there, but we don't need to use that. So all that is fluff, okay? So what we need is we need our volume and we need our time. All right, so an easy way to do the 1 and 1/4 liters, we know that 1/4 is 25, so that's just 1.25 liters, and that's going to be over our time is 18 hours. All right, so we know that our answer needs to be in mLs per hour, but we currently are in liters per hour. So let's get liters out the way. So if liters is on the top, liters need to be on the bottom. So 1 liter is 1,000 mLs. All right, so then mLs, not mLs cancel out. So then liters cancel out, and then we're left with mLs per hour. So we're then going to multiply straight across the top, 1.25 times 1,000, and we're going to get 1,250. And then 18 times 1 is 18. So you should get 69.4. But we know when we are dealing with the IV pump that your question normally is going to tell you to round to the nearest whole number. So we're going to round this to 69 mLs per hour. But you want to make sure that you always pay attention to what your question for sure says round to. The question reads, the doctor orders Zantac 150 milligrams in 175 of D5W to infuse IV piggyback over 45 minutes. The drop factor is 12 GTTs per ml. How many mLs will you administer, would you set your pump to? So our answer needs to end in mLs. So again, we do not need the drop factor. All we need is our volume and our time, okay? So don't let the questions fool you with all this extra fluff, okay? So let's start with the order. So let's say we have, in this question, we have 1.75 mLs, and our time is over 45 minutes. All right, so we know that our answer needs to be in mLs per hour, but we're currently in mLs per minute. So we want to cancel out our minutes. So minutes is on the bottom, so minutes need to go on the top. So 60 minutes is equal to 1 hour. So our minutes cancel out, and we're left with mLs per hour. So now all we have to do is multiply 175 times 60, and that is 10,500. And then we want to multiply the bottom. 45 times 1 is 45. So we then do 10,500 divided by 45. And you should get 233.33. So again, you want to round to the nearest whole number, or you want to make sure that you follow the directions of your question specifically. So we're going to round this one to the nearest whole number, and we're going to set the pump to 233 mLs per hour. The question says that the doctor orders Rocephin 0.5 grams in 250 mLs of D5W to infuse over 45 minutes. The drop factor is 12 GTTs per ml. So this question says, how many GTTs per minute will you regulate the IV piggyback? All right, so we want to first realize and figure out what our question needs, our answer needs to end in, and what our question is asking for. And it's asking for GTTs per minute. All right, so now what we're going to look for is we're going to go with the volume and the time. All right, so let's go ahead and start that. So in the physician's order, he ordered 250 mLs of that medication over 45 minutes. All right, so our answer needs to be in GTTs per minute, but we're currently in mLs per minute. So let's get rid of the mL. So let's go back to the problem and see where do we have some mLs. Okay, we got an mL right there. So if mLs is on the top, mLs need to go on the bottom. So we got 1 mL over, well, under 12 GTTs is going to go on the top. So what's going to cancel out? Our mLs is going to cancel out, and we're going to be left with GTTs per minute. All right, so now we have to do is just multiply straight across the top and the bottom. So 250 times 12 is going to give us 3,000. 45 times 1 is going to give us 45. So then we're going to do 3,000 divided by 45, and that's going to give us 66.666. So depending on what your question tells you to round to, that's what you round it to. So my question wants you to round to the nearest whole number. So remember, we can't give half of a drop, okay? That's a good thing to remember. Mostly when it comes to GTTs per minute, it's always going to be in a whole number because we can't give half of a drop, a point of a drop. So we're going to round this to the nearest whole number, and it's going to give us 67 GTTs per minute. The question says the doctor orders 1/4 liter of D5W to infuse over 2 hours and 45 minutes. Your drop factor is 60 GTTs per ml. So your question wants to know how many GTTs per minute will you regulate the IV pump. So first we want to figure out what our question is asking for. It's asking for GTTs per minute. All right, so it's a couple of things we have to do first. So we're looking for our volume and our time. All right, so I like to go ahead and simplify my fraction. So I know 1/4, that's going to be 25, right? So that's going to be 0.25 liters. All right, and then with our time, I like to go ahead and put all of the time in minutes. To me, it's easier. Instead of moving the minutes to hours, I like to move all my hours to minutes. So we have 45 minutes right here, and then we know that 1 hour is 60 minutes, and then another hour is another 60 minutes. So we have a total of 165 minutes. I hope I didn't lose anybody, okay? So 165 minutes. So we then going to go over here and put our 165 minutes. So remember, our 165 minutes is the same thing as 2 hours and 45 minutes. All right, so our answer needs to be in GTTs per minute. We're currently in liters per minute. So we need to cancel out our liters. But do we have liters in our problem? No, we have mLs. So we got to go from liters to mLs. So we know that 1 liter is 1,000 mLs. All right, so then liters cancel out. Now we're left with our mLs. So now our mLs, we can go back to our problem up here. So we got 1 ml on the bottom, and then, let me get rid of this. So we got 1 ml on the bottom, and then we got 60 GTTs on the top. So our mLs is going to cancel out, and we're left with GTTs per minute. So now all we have to do is multiply straight across. So we're going to straight across the top and the bottom. So we're going to do 0.25 times 1,000 times GTT, and that's going to give us 15,000. And then we're going to multiply straight across the bottom. 165 times 1, and that's 165. So you're going to do 15,000 divided by 165, and you should get 90.90. So remember, drops, we are always going to round our drops to the nearest whole number because we can't give 0.90 of a drop. So that's going to give us 90 GTTs per minute. All right, hope you guys got this one correct. The physician orders cefoxin 0.5 grams in 250 mLs of D5W to infuse IV piggyback over 2 hours, the drop factor is 60 GTTs per ml. How many GTTs per minute will you regulate the IV pump? So first we need to figure out what our answer needs to end in, and that's GTTs per minute. All right, so let's look at our problem to see what all we need. So we're going to need our volume and we're going to need our time. All right, so let's go ahead and set that up. All right, so we're going to do 275 mLs over 2 hours. All right, so we know that mLs need to cancel out and we know that hour needs to cancel out. So first, let's go ahead and cancel out our mLs. So we know that if mLs is on the top, mLs need to go on the bottom. So we go to our problem and we see that it has 60 GTTs per 1 ml. So ml is going to go on the bottom and 60 GTTs is going to go on the top. All right, so our mLs cancel out and we're left with GTTs per hour, but we need to be in GTTs per minute. So if we have hours on the bottom, hours need to go on the top, and we know that 1 hour is 60 minutes. So then our hours cancel out, and then we're left with GTTs per minute. So now all we have to do is multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. So we're going to do 275 times 60, and that's going to give us 16,500. And then we got 2 hours times 60. So 2 times 60, that's 120. So we're going to do 16,500 divided by 120. And that's going to give us 137.5. So remember, we can't give 0.5 of a drop, so we're going to round to the nearest whole number. So that's going to give us 138 GTTs per minute. The question says, doctor orders 3/4 liters of D5W to infuse over 5 hours and 45 minutes. The drop factor is 60 drops per ml. How many GTTs per minute will you regulate the IV? So our answer is looking for GTTs per minute. All right, so first what we need out of the physician order, we need the volume and we need the time. All right, so let's do some converting. So 3/4, we know that's 75, right? So that's 0.75 liters. Now, our time, what we're going to do with our time, we want to put all our time in minutes. So let's go to the side. So we got 45 minutes right here. Now, we know that for every hour, it's 60 minutes. So what you would have to do is you would do 60 minutes times 5 hours, right? So that would give us 300 minutes. And we're going to add that to the 45 minutes we have. So 345 minutes is the same as 5 hours and 45 minutes. So we're going to take that 345 and bring it over here into minutes. All right, so our answer needs to be in GTT per minute, so we need to get rid of liters. But do we have liters in the problem? No, we don't. So we have to convert because we only have mLs. So liters on the top, liters got to be on the bottom. So 1 liter is equal to 1,000 mLs. So liters cancel out, and we're left with mLs per minute. But we don't need to be in mLs per minute. We need to be in GTTs per minute. So let's go back to our problem, and let's see how can we cancel out the mLs. So our problem says that we have 60 GTTs per 1 ml. So ml is on the top, so ml is going to go on the bottom. 1 ml and 60 GTTs is going to go on the top. So our mLs is going to cancel out, and we're going to be left with GTTs per minute. So now all we have to do is multiply straight across the top. So we're going to take 0.75 times 1,000 times 60, and that's going to give us 45,000. And then we going to multiply 345 times 1, which is 345. So we put 345 on the bottom. So we're going to take 45,000 divided by 345, and you should get 130.43. Well, again, remember, we can't get 0.43 of a drop, so we have to round to the nearest whole number, and that's going to be 130 GTTs per minute.